Hi, my name is Seth Embry, and I'm the Senior Advisor and Chief Strategist at the Housing Authority of the Birmingham District. April is Fair Housing Month, and we are proud to be an organization that embraces and furthers fair housing in our area and in our programs. So this month, we're happy to bring you some conversation with folks who are doing the hard work of helping members of our community find housing, secure housing in the Birmingham area. I hope you enjoy these conversations and stay tuned for more information. Okay, Leah, thank you for joining me today. How are you?
Doing well. Yeah.
Great. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah. So my name's Leah Sanderson. I'm the development director at the Well House. I've been there about 2.5 years now, and have been kind of in this world of anti-trafficking efforts since 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because before you were at Well House, you were in this. So how did you get into the anti-trafficking world?
Yeah. I was a college student at the time, and a friend of mine was like, "Hey, you care about women and justice in the community, and you should check out this nonprofit." There was another community nonprofit that was doing some street outreach in Birmingham, and so I just started going out with them and meeting women, learning their stories, and then got to the point where I ended up taking them to the Well House when they wanted other options, and so found out about the Well House that way. And really just fell in love with what they were doing and really believe in it. So when I got the opportunity, I jumped on it to be with them. Yeah.
So I've had the pleasure to learn about Well House and to sit and talk with staff and get a really finite kind of detailed understanding of the various programs and not one thing that you offer, right? So talk for a couple minutes about the services that are provided and the women that you aim to serve.
Yeah. So we serve women and girls, so ages 11 and up, really. For our women's program, it's kind of we've got a phase situation in that the first step is stabilization and figuring out, okay, are we the best fit for this person? Is there anything they need to know about our program that wasn't previously communicated to them? Do they need detox? Do they need to go back to the state they're from and visit a court before they can come into our program? Logistically, we're figuring that out with them. Do they need to go to a psych ward before they can enter? And then we're starting what we call core programming, where they're in one of our 2 women's homes. We can house up to 10 in one home and 12 in another, so around 22 women at a time in those core programming homes. In our stabilization home, we can house 4 women.
All right. So women come to you from anywhere, I'm guessing. They're referred, or do you all do outreach as well?
We don't do outreach ourselves, so we partner with other outreach organizations, and mostly women are referred. So from other NGOs, recovery programs, outreach, law enforcement, for our girls, DHR. And so figuring out, okay, if they are coming from out of state, often it's because they want to leave that state as they've been trafficked there.
Yeah.
Locally, women just find out about us because at this point, we've hoped to have done a good enough job spreading awareness that people start to find out, oh, if I'm being trafficked, this is an option for me in Birmingham. So
Yeah. So talk about kind of the state of trafficking in our region, in our state.
yeah, um, it's obviously prevalent, and we're grateful that nowadays people are talking about it more and more. And so I feel like now when we say trafficking's happening in Birmingham, most people are like, correct. And so we've improved a lot in that area. I think what most folks don't realize is just the ways that it is so nuanced, in that many women and girls aren't even leaving their own homes and being trafficked. We think of driving across the city and across state lines and being transported from place to place to place, but for most folks, they can live in their home their whole life and still experience trafficking. And so that's what we're seeing is happening a lot in Alabama, is they're still showing up to school. They're still showing up to sporting events, extracurriculars. Their life from the outside might look completely fine.
Yeah.
And at home, things are horrific.
Yeah, it sounds as horrific as I'm sure you all are much more intimately knowledgeable about the stories of these women and girls that you work with. What do you think in a specific with your program, right? What do you hope to be able to be a part of in our region and in our state? Because there are, like you said, there's an overall awareness of the issue, right? But I couldn't, maybe it's just me, like I couldn't go and define where women are trapped,
Yeah.
and things like that. So what should people really know about how close to home this hits, aside from what you just mentioned?
Um, I mean, they need to know, one, how close exploitation hits. I mean, 1 in every 3 women are experiencing sexual abuse, and we know that that is one of the largest vulnerabilities to being trafficked, is an early childhood of sexual abuse. And so they need to know that there's no one that's exempt to this. And so part of that is, if someone's experienced an early childhood abuse, it's common that it would lead to a life of being involved in trafficking. So they need to know what prevention efforts can be done. And then, yeah, they need to know what resources are available. Well House being one of those, but Well House is a big step for someone to take. It's a 1 to 2, 3 year long program where you're committing um, to getting whole and gaining healing. And for some folks, that's not what they can do right now. And so being aware of, yeah, can we do recovery before we can get to a program that can help me with housing and employment? And so what are the baby steps folks can take if they're not ready to fully jump into their law?
One of the things I think that's most impressive about your program is really the setting of where you're located, right? So you're obviously cognizant of the trauma and chaotic environments, unhealthy environments that trafficked women and girls live in, right? And so you're, as an organization, very intentional about where your program is. So talk about that setting and how it's so important.
Yeah. Um, when we were located in Birmingham, I think we just saw a big shift in the women and girls' perceived safety. Being out in St. Clair, I mean, there is just like a really tangible kind of peace when you're out there. Which I love that you mentioned the chaos that they're used to, because sometimes that's pretty disorienting. If you come from chaos, something's always going on, you're always kind of hustling to get by, to, hey, here's a bed and some food and you don't have to do anything. It can be pretty jarring to a survivor to think, and there's no catch here. There's no strings attached to this. And so I think our environment helps us build trust early on by saying, like, hey, we don't want anything from you. We want to give you anything that you need. So it helps us build that trust early on. And then, yeah, like I mentioned, that safety, that they feel like they can rest and not be found, and know that they're going to be okay.
Sure. So you said it's a 1 to 3 year program, I'm sure, depending on the individual, kind of what their needs are. And typically, what do you hope for women who leave the program to go to in terms of a housing setting?
Yeah.
And then what are the challenges that they experience really trying to get independent living out back in whatever community they want to go to once they're done with the program?
Yeah, so when they're in our program, they're getting free housing by living in the core program houses. And then when they graduate, they have the opportunity to move to our transitional living apartments. And so they've got subsidized rent there. And we think that's important, that they can kind of start to experience and practice what it's like to pay in a little bit a month. The biggest challenge is that jump from, okay, here's what they're paying at Well House, and it's not even close to market rate. And so what gets hard is when, okay, I've got this full-time job, but, I'm still paying this fine. I'm still trying to get these charges off my record, and you just got a lot of other fees that are involved in the process, especially to gaining valuable full-time employment that's empowering and sustainable.
Yeah.
And so even if all of those things were done, which is what we're hoping is done by the time someone graduates our program, is that they've got sustainable employment, charges are off their record that don't deserve to be there, that they've got, a good savings built up. Even then, what we're looking at rent-wise is still difficult.
Sure.
And so just that jump from, okay, I've been paying some at Well House, but it's still
Yeah.
such an
So
adjustment.
it's definitely an affordability issue, access to housing, and trying to get back into, try to maintain, I'm sure, some of that calm that they had,
Right.
and a fresh start, I'm guessing, for women who leave, and trying to really establish a new life, a new routine.
Yeah.
So what would you say in closing, if folks are interested in, they might know someone or might just want to support the organization, what should they do?
There's lots of ways to support the Well House. we love and welcome volunteers. I mean, it's intangible what they can do for us, whether it's from helping us get the grass cut to helping lead a budgeting class for those folks who are in our apartments for what does it look like for me to leave and be able to afford rent. And so volunteers can be involved financially. We'd love to partner with people if they want to give. And for those who think they know someone who might need help, the best thing you can do for someone who's trying to escape trafficking is to believe their story, and stick with them when it's hard. And continue to say, like, hey, there is hope for you out there, and I'm willing to do what it takes to get you there.
That's incredible. That's really poignant. Well, thank you very much for joining me. I'm really hoping that this message gets out far and wide as we celebrate Fair Housing Month and understand the different struggles different members of our society, our neighbors face, and just trying to access housing.
Well, we're
Thank
really
you.
grateful for you guys.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.